Hello, hello. Welcome to the Five Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. I interview the top commercial real estate investors and industry experts so you can learn from their experiences. So if you're an investor, a high W-2 earner, or real estate or tech sales professional that wants to invest in real estate without having to manage properties or leave your day job, then this podcast is for you. Or if you're already investing in real estate, but you're doing it part-time and you want to become a full-time multifamily or full-time commercial real estate investor, this podcast is for you too. You're going to learn a ton. You will learn from real-life multifamily investors and other professionals in the industry. They're going to share their blueprints for success, and I'm super excited that you're here. So I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, hello. This is Abel Pacheco, your host for the Five Talents Podcast, where we talk about commercial real estate, financial independence, motivation, among other topics. And we're just super excited today. We have a very special guest, Mr. Whitney Sewell. Whitney, thank you so much for joining, man. I really appreciate it, brother.
My pleasure, Abel. It's been a pleasure to get to know you, and even before your show, and us talk through that process of just podcasting and all that, and see your growth. It's a pleasure to be here.
Man, I'm very excited. For those that don't know Whitney, you're probably not in the commercial real estate world just yet, because he is among many other things, which we'll kind of dive into his story. But he has a podcast, and it is on show number 700. What's the name of your podcast, and what show or number are you
Yeah,
on?
the Real Estate Syndication Show. We've recorded over 800 shows now in the last just about 2 years or 2.5 years.
Yeah, so they push out content like champions every single day, and I've learned a ton. Many people have. I was a guest on Whitney's show, and a few people have since reached out to me because of that interview, and then other podcast interviews because they saw me on your show, and it was kind of one of those extra motivations to say, you know what, I should absolutely start a podcast. But I sincerely appreciate it. And Whitney, he's the founder of Life Bridge Capital. He works with accredited investors, and basically they set it up to where they can improve investment returns via exceptional opportunities that multifamily syndication offers. So he and his wife Chelsea, they have three little ones. They've adopted two boys and a baby girl. They have 600 doors under management, plus probably a few others running around here and there. And they have approximately about $80 million plus today under their management, with another couple hundred doors under contract. I know this is ever flowing and ongoing, but so you host the podcast, the daily podcast as well. And then really, he's got a motto that rang true, resonated with me deeply. And I was like, man, I have to get into Whitney's world. They're making a difference, one investor, one child at a time. And we'll definitely talk about this because a lot of his work and efforts goes into helping the people in the adoption process and those children. So man, I'm super excited, Whitney, just to open up the conversation, man. So
Yeah, I'm excited too, Abel.
good deal. So why don't we turn it over to you? Tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll just jump right into what you're doing today.
Awesome. Well, everybody asks, well, how do you get into this business, right? I'll briefly go through a few things because I think it's helpful in knowing how I've gotten where I'm at. Different things shape us, right? Especially difficult times and good times, shape us in different ways. But going backwards, or back many years, but quickly joined the military after high school. It was in 2001 though, and I say March of 2001 because that was before 9/11, right? Had no idea that in just a few short months I would be spending, our nation would be at war, right? And then quickly I would be spending a year of my life in Iraq, toting around a machine gun, praying every day that I get to go home.
Wow.
And unfortunately not everyone in my squad made it home, and so just some tough times, right? Some tough times, having to do that. I'm thankful that I served. I'm thankful obviously to make it home, and and to have accomplished that. Lord was just very gracious and just protected me. But came home, and I didn't really know what I was going to do for a career. I quickly I thought, okay, law enforcement, it's just a good transition. I love the uniform, the structure, the discipline of military. And I thought, okay, that's a really good fit. And so it was. There were 1,200 applicants and only 5 positions with Kentucky State Police. And I was blessed to have one of those. And I loved working the road as a police officer. And I worked really hard to get that position and loved it. I mean, I would have done it for free the first probably 2 years. It
Wow.
just, I really enjoyed it. However, then got married and things changed, right? I just passed, my wife and I just passed each other in the hallway the first whole year of marriage. And, I started meeting numerous officers that obviously became friends of mine, but they were, had been married numerous times. And I mean, it's just a very difficult family
Mm-hmm.
position.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
plus guys that were retiring with 25 to 30 years on that were making like 30 to 35,000, maybe 40,000 a year at
Uh,
retirement,
so
after all
hard.
those years of service. And
Yeah.
so finally the writing was on the wall. Thankfully, quickly in that career, right? I didn't wait 10 years in or 15 years in. Quickly I was okay, this is just not what is best. What else can I do? And so that in 2009, I said, okay, I found real estate. I can't remember if it was Reading Rich Dad Poor Dad or whatever it may have been. Just that idea of being able to build wealth in real estate. I was exposed to that thought process anyway. And I started researching. I didn't have any entrepreneurs in my family, no one that were real estate investors. No one in my family ever really had money to invest, even to think, to start thinking that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We didn't have, money or wealth growing up, and it just wasn't even a thought. And so, but I was at that time looking for some way to supplement this income as a police officer, and in came real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And so bought a couple triplexes quickly, made a bunch of mistakes. It became it was our own university. I mean, and we
Yeah.
learned so much from that. But man, there was so much brain damage, at the same time, just self-managing and trying to do it all ourselves while still being a police officer and newly married. And, it was all kinds of things happening there. Right. But it made us stronger. It taught us a lot about real estate. That's for sure. But thankfully we did sell that property. And at the same time, I became a federal agent, and that moved us to Virginia, where we still live now. And so I gained a better schedule, better income, all those things. But still, there was a limit, right? There was a ceiling. I could only go so far. I quickly, maxed out, how far I could push that career in just like 2 to 3 years. But I was still pursuing some real estate things. But I bought up to like a 15 unit
Mm-hmm.
property, and that was the biggest. Even buying that, I was like, whoa. Can I? That was really stretching me at that time. But I didn't know about this thing called syndication. Had no idea that this was out there, and so finally I learned about the syndication business, and I was like, wow, this makes a lot of sense. I can grow a professional business or professional brand, work with professionals. I'm not the one on the ground anymore. I'm not looking. I mean, I was tired of looking for more tenants and toilets, right? I mean, looking
Yeah.
for that next duplex, or, what's the next one going to be? Instead, now obviously I get to work with very professional investors, professional property management. I get to vet those teams and build the teams myself, and hire professionals on our team that are the best at what they do, and so ultimately, big transition for us, right? But there's so many details there we can talk about or ask, or when you ask, how we did different things, but ultimately we, I had a different business also at the same time. And most people in this business don't even know this, but I was training horses professionally. I've been riding since I was little. My wife and I had the farm that we had always dreamed of. And I say that so people understand, like, you may have this like thing that you're very passionate about, but it's kind of holding you back at the same time. And this desire to ride horses for me did hold us back. Like I kept wanting to do this. I kept striving to do this, and finally I was doing it at a big scale. But I was riding horses till midnight most nights in the arena, and traveling,
Wow.
doing clinics, all over the country, and doing lots of lessons, selling very expensive horses. But again, it was never going to be passive, and it was just taking like it was another full-time job, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it was just
Mm-hmm.
maxing out my schedule. So again, I had to say, okay, this is just not what is best. And so when I learned about the syndication business, I started traveling and started going to as many conferences all over the country as I possibly could. And I started meeting guys and gals who had only been in the business a short time, but they were buying like 100 unit complexes and bigger. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, how can they do that?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I knew that if they could do it, guess what? I can do it too. I'll figure this out, right? I can make this happen. If they can do it. And so, a couple common things though that I noticed is that most of them, almost if not all of them, had a mentor,
Hmm.
of some
Hmm.
kind, and they were part of some kind of group, like that, of people that were out there making it happen. They were surrounding themselves by people like that, and a lot of them also had a business partner. And so that, there was just a few similarities, that I started to notice. And so quickly, what, my wife and I, we were on the beach one fall, and we had just bought this farm like less than a year ago. And the Lord just gave us peace about selling everything.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I wanted to paint that picture of this passion, just so you can visualize or try to understand how difficult that was for my wife and I. And we'd also just started our third adoption process at this time, and so we knew that was going to be 40 to 60,000 more dollars we were going to have to come up with there, which it's been a struggle every time to find that money, and so we said, okay, the Lord just gave us both peace about it. We're going to sell everything and be obviously so we can go afford the adoption, and we can also just commit to this syndication business. And so we did. We sold any small properties that we had, the 15 unit. We sold our farm, and we downsized in a big way, and just to make it happen. And that was a tough time, a couple years. And we can go into that, what it took to run, so obviously started the daily podcast, and just the difficulties of that alone, while working full time, while doing deals, working with investors, a growing family, pursuing our third adoption, moving numerous times. I mean, all those things were happening, and I had to keep all those plates spinning. And there's and you can ask me about it again in a little bit if you want, but like some hidden team members sometimes I like to talk about, that I feel like are not typically talked about, when someone's trying to make a business like this happen. But if I didn't have those hidden team members, I like to call them, it couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
It just would not have happened. But yes, now we have 650 doors I think under management, right around there, and 250 more under contract right now. And just we've gone from raising 250,000 I think on the first deal, and being so excited about it, right, to raising 10.2 million within 10 hours. 10.2 million. I mean, when I think about that now, I'm like, Lord, I just give him the credit, because I'm like, this is incredible. So very grateful to where he's brought us, and my business partner as well.
Wow, Whitney, there are so many things in here. I already took, I don't know if you can see this, a couple pages worth of notes. I mean, literally in the first
Let's
few
get
minutes.
into it. Yeah.
And
Excited.
just summarize a couple of things that I heard, right? Number one, thank you for your service in the military. Big, just thank you very much for risking your life. And like you said, unfortunately, there were people that did not come back, and that's just, in any part of the service, in the military. And we just thank, God for all the people that are willing to sacrifice their lives for our freedoms. And that's, it's just amazing. But like you said, you're transitioning back into civilian kind of ish life as a police officer, you and your wife kind of passing ships in the night, and then looking to the people that are retiring, that have been there for years, $35,000 retirements. And you're like, is this really the way I want to end up? So it was amazing that you had that, end in mind, and quickly, transition. I love the fact that you were, it sounds like you're always focused on your life goals, no matter what, success you had in mind, your family, your children now, that was at the core. So is your faith, and it's evident as you speak, and, give thanks to the Lord, which is, amazing. Praise God. And thank you for that, sharing it with us. And then your transition from single to multifamily, you only had to do a couple of those deals, a triplex, a 15 unit, whatever else was in between there, to say there's got to be a different way. Seeing the syndication folks, seeing the way they did it, right? You'll hear constantly over and over, coach, mentor, just like you did. Hey, they did it. I can do it too. So, all of these things are just, if I could summarize a few of those are awesome. So I want to, maybe start here, which is, it's just mind blowing for me. When I first got started, even a $2 million or $3 million raise for a new deal seemed just like, oh my gosh, this number is so daunting. And to hear that just, in a short period of time, you're able to raise $10.2 million in a period of a couple of hours. Tell us how that happens. I don't want to make any assumptions. Just, let's hear about that, and we'll dig in there.
Yeah, it's a long process. There's so many things in there that has to happen. It has to happen right. I do just give the credit to the Lord and all that. But man, the stamina that my wife and I had to have over the last few years have just been extreme. Okay. And it's not something I think we could have done without the Lord's help. And I'm happy to get into that. But having the daily podcast has been instrumental, in that, no doubt about it. The daily podcast is an extreme undertaking, to say the least. I only know one other daily podcast, in the real estate business, and I mean, it is just an extreme amount of work, and it doesn't quit, right? I mean, you're having to do at least 30, and preferably a few more than that, shows a month. And if you're working full time, if you can think about that, like, when are you going to do that many interviews? And so you can just think about my schedule. Just no time at home. I mean, just absolutely almost none. Like, my kids knew, like, Sundays when Dad's going to be available. Like, that's what they looked forward to. I can remember, so many times over that 2-year period or so, I had this, like, we call it, like, a dungeon office in the basement, and there's a hole where I can look up, see outside, like the old houses. I can see outside, and I can see my boys playing out in the yard, and it just would kill me, that I couldn't be out there with them. But I just had to keep that goal in mind. I had to keep in mind where we were going, and what it was going to take to get there. And it just couldn't give myself an option any other way. I just had to keep saying, okay, that's what it's going to take. Let's not focus on how hard it's going to be. Like, let's just get started. Right. Yeah, and that just had to continually be what I would think about, or how I would think about those situations. Cause it was, I mean, every day I get in from work, and it's, interview, 4 or 5 in the afternoon, or phone calls, till really late. I would do 15 interviews in a day sometimes, on my days off.
Wow.
And so that, I mean, I call it a marathon day. They're nonstop, just as hard as I can go, but I knew that's what I had to do, so it's not like, I gave myself really an option. But that's what had to happen, to get to that level that quick. But obviously, think about, a daily podcast. Well, that's increasing my network 7 people a week, if not more, at least. Right. And so as opposed to one, like most podcasts, not that, a weekly podcast is bad in any way. It is good. I mean, people have tons of success, but it just allowed me to go a lot further, a lot faster. But it did take a ton more effort, and still does. So we built a team initially. I mean, from the very beginning, before I ever launched, I built a team of people to help me with this. And I had to, because there's no way that I could ever do it myself. I've never edited the first piece of audio or video, and don't know how, and don't want to. That's not what I'm good at. And knew that from the beginning, that I would not be able to keep up, and would have quit. And so building that machine, right, to interview all these people, build all the content, be able to have a systematic way of making all that happen. And then ultimately too, having that in my family unit as well. Like, they know my schedule, they know, or they, like, this is when Dad has to work. But they also know when Dad's going to be available. I just, like I say, it's so important, especially for your kids too, and your wife or spouse, that they know, okay, this is when we're going to have some family time, right? There is some sunshine, they can see the light coming, right? And so, because it gets, it's long weeks, right? But ultimately, it took all that time to get to where we're at now, where we can raise this kind of capital. Because at that same time, even to the point, I would open my schedule to take investor calls from 5 a.m. to 7, like from 5 a.m. in the morning until 7, until I went to work. And believe it or not, there are people who will schedule calls that early, and they're very surprised that you have openings at that time, but I would take investor calls then. And even if I didn't have investor calls, guess what? I needed to be up doing emails, or I needed to be up, preparing for more interviews, or whatever it may be. It just took a ton of dedication, to make that happen. A few things though that really, I think, streamlined also, you ask, like being able to raise that kind of money. It's a relationship business, no doubt about it. Even, knowing other people like you, Abel, in the business, or whether it's, obviously all the investor relations, or just other people that are, very successful in this business, and we all help each other, ask questions and bounce things off each other. But for me personally, another way that I found that has helped me, and I didn't plan it this way, is our why and our mission behind Life Bridge Capital. And so when I first started going to all these networking events, and let me just give a little detail there too. When I started traveling, I mean, I was going somewhere like almost twice a month to a different conference, but flying, like going, so you can imagine just how much I'm working full time, doing the daily podcast. Now I'm traveling, a couple weekends a month, at least once, if not 2 weekends a month,
Yeah.
I mean, everywhere all over the country, going to conferences. And my whole goal at conferences and network, right, is meet as many people as possible. And so, but to have a genuine conversation, right? Not just shotgun approach, blasting out business cards. That doesn't work very well. But to really have as many genuine conversations as I could. And the first few deals that I raised for, I mean, all that capital came from those connections. I mean, people say, oh, there's no investors at those conferences. There are.
One-to-one conversations at a real estate seminar or conference that we attended was a good way for me as well. The jump from my first friends and family members, the people that knew me, to the next kind of level. I did that for a period of 2 years as well, pre-COVID, when we were doing all this stuff. And that was, it's a big way. Yeah, absolutely.
So what I found though is during those conversations, and like I said, I didn't plan it this way, but I started seeing this happen, is that people say, well, what do you do? Right? Well, what do you do? And, and so I got to tell them a little bit about syndication business and whatnot, but I would share about our why and our mission, about helping families through the adoption process. And what that done is that allowed them to see me passionate about something, right? They saw that in me, right? And then, but also they learn about something about me outside of real estate. So if somebody's having, conversations that weekend, whether it's 50 conversations or 100 different people, and it's all about real estate, they're not going to remember too many of those individually, right? But when you can connect on a level that's something you're passionate about, something that's shows, you're desiring to do something bigger than just your real estate business, it allows you to make a connection a lot deeper than just business, right? And so then when I would follow up, let's say, the next day, in a week later or something like that, they would remember, who I was. They would remember that why. They would remember that mission, as opposed to us just talking about multifamily, or talking about whatever, single family versus whatever that, they want to talk about at the conference. And so that was a big game changer, I think, when I started to realize that really helps connect, just helped connect you on a more personal level and really jump way ahead in the relationship, before, as opposed to having to then have a phone call and 3 or 4 phone calls. And like, we're already connecting at a lot deeper level there. Cause then they're impressed to tell me. That's right. They're ready to tell me then about something about their kids. And guess what? I'm trying to remember that. And I'm going to bring that up in an email, or I'm going to take notes about that, and it just allows us to connect on a lot deeper level, a lot faster. But then, it took another year or two, of still doing that, but continuing to follow up. And now referrals, are also a big way that we grow our investor base now. But podcasts, number one, built credibility, allowed us to grow our network just extremely fast. People see all those interviews, people see us, all over the place. They get a lot of value from finding interviews, finding content on our website through all those. But then also, just investors that connect. And so often they feel like they already know me. we have that conversation, and they're, they'll talk for 20 minutes, and I'll say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go to the next call, or, go to the next phone call. And they'll be like, oh, I feel like I already know you, Whitney. I listen to you every morning, and like, you can't put a value on that almost, So that's just a few things, Abel. I know there's a ton there, but I just, those are a few things that's helped us to get quickly where we're at, or where we're at. Big thing is just the dedication, the commitment, and just not quitting.
Yeah. There's so many things that you can transfer: the persistence, the dedication, the motivation, the why, from your podcast on a daily podcast to probably like, am I going to have success in multifamily? And am I going to find my first deal? And am I going to be able to raise enough capital, et cetera, et cetera? There's a lot of things that you can transfer from one to the other. And so what period of time, or what time period was like, from the time you closed maybe your first 15 unit deal, you went from triplex to 15, whatever. And then what period of time was it that you started attending the conferences? And then when did you take down your first deal? When did you start your podcast? Kind of break that timeline down a little bit.
Okay, I'll try to remember some of that. I know, like the triplex, I bought 2 triplexes 2009. That was our first property. I did have one investor on that partnered with us.
Okay.
And I would say they made every penny they were promised. But it was a big learning experience for us, that's for sure. And then it was like 2 years later that we moved to Virginia. Okay. We still owned those properties at that time. And then, it was while in Virginia, let's see, I was trying to think of the 15 unit, what year we bought that. I don't know if it was like 2016, something like that, 16 probably, 15 or 16, I'll say. And then it was the end of 17. It was the end of 17 when we sold our farm. We hired a mentor, and it was probably the end of 18. We partnered on our first large acquisition, actually 2 large acquisitions, end of 18. And 19, we closed on a 180 unit deal in June. Actually, so there's another story. A big part of our story too is my business partner, how we met, and just how, his unique skill sets and mine. After we joined, it's just like, we've really taken off.
Was that the 2016, 2017? He kind of helped you
So
guys
we
together?
didn't meet until we met in like the beginning of 19.
Got it. So just recently.
Beginning of 19.
Yep.
So we met.
It happens so quickly, right? Like,
it does.
So you're like, took me forever. Like, well, the journey was, that may have been long to get there, but once things start clicking, I've heard this again and again from multiple people that I've interviewed. It just really starts to get, comes on fire.
So that was beginning of 19 when he and I met. We'd already sold our farm. I'd already committed to the business. I'd already been doing the daily podcast, launched in like August of 18.
Got it.
Yeah, of 18. So we've just over 2 years now, or
Awesome.
October, somewhere in there.
Good deal.
And so almost 800 days ago, I can tell you that. And then, he and I met, and then, he's just an expert with numbers and underwriting. I call him a genius nearly. And so he's just really gifted in that. And he had been working with broker relations and working on lots of those things. I'd already had, the capital ability, as far as raising capital, investor relations. And then, we just joined together our unique abilities, and it's just really launched us forward. The Lord has been just really working in all that.
Yeah.
But then, I think in 2019, he and I closed 180 unit in like June. Then it was the next March. So 2020 now, we closed 216 in March. We closed 172 in August. We'll close 118 and 150 unit deal, 2 different deals in December.
Yeah, get it on. Congratulations on it. So for the passive investors that are listening to this, so there are, a good number of our followers, I think at this point, passive investors and maybe first time, second time, general partners. We're trying to figure out how to get better. We're listening to the podcast and we're taking all these nuggets, right? what kind of nugget would you provide, maybe tactical or action plan or steps, whatever they may be, for the passive investors listening? I see you and I see this massive, path of success, project myself into like, man, I'm trying to figure out how to get in, how to get past, how to do my first or second or third passive investment. Give them some advice here, Whitney.
Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously, I'm having investor calls. I mean, many calls every week. Our team is scheduling all these calls, and everybody wants to know, is this the right sponsor? I mean, some people come in all different levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
This may be their first investment in real estate with us, and then again, there's experienced investors who have done this a dozen times, right? And so they all have different questions, but I just know that it is so much more about the sponsor than it is about the deal. It's so, you can ask questions about the deal you want to, right? You want to know where it is. You want to know the location. You want to know the types of deals. You want to know the sponsors, completed this type of business plan before. You want to know the management company. You want to know they've done this type of deal before. If it's value add, well, how heavy value add? What's your business plan? What's your rent increase assumptions? What's your, expense assumptions? Like all those things you can ask about, right? But it all comes down to your relationship with that sponsor. It all comes down to their ability to operate. Are they trustworthy? Are they, are going to do what they say they're going to do? And I just think, some investors want to ask like some questions, so many questions that are like so technical, right? And it's like, yeah, we can get into those things, but I just, it's not always like getting them where they want to go. I I feel like they need to know me personally, and then let's talk about me as an operator, and let's talk about our team. Like asking me about, who's on our team, how have we prepared for these things, how did we perform during the coronavirus stuff, how are we prepared for that moving forward, what do we do different than maybe other teams potentially that that we've seen struggle. How have we not struggled during those same times, and even moving forward? You want to get your operator thinking. You want to know, they need to know your concern, and you're doing your homework. But it is so much more about, when times are tough, are they going to do what they say they're going to do? What's their character, and even ask for some references. There's a lot of people are doing background checks and all those things now too, which, is fine. I don't care, if you want to do a background check on me. But you just have to think about, who is this person? Are they going to, when the times get tough, are they going to treat me, just like it's their capital that was invested, and hopefully they do have capital that's invested. But I just like to say, it is so much more about that relationship and who this person is. And ES track record's so important. Have they done this before? Like the things I mentioned, but them as a person, so much more important than that deal itself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic insight, because there are all these technical items, but man, at the bottom, at the end of it, it's like, who am I going to be partnered with? You're literally partnered in a business opportunity. I'm putting, my hard-earned capital that probably taken me, somewhat of a good number of years to kind of put together $50,000 at a minimum, if not more. And do I trust this individual that they're going to have the, the grit, the perseverance, the determination when things go a little sideways? Because we're in real estate, it usually does one way or the other. And is the person on the other end going to fight and continue on and have my best interest? Are they going to be good financial stewards of my money? Right. So yeah, that's a key. Hello. You're listening to the 5 Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. If you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you're serious about achieving financial freedom. Are you ready to create your own path through multifamily investing for yourself and your family? Then I know you're going to appreciate our Investor's Guide to Multifamily Investing. It's titled Tackling Commercial Real Estate the Easy Way. We use this guide to invest ourselves in $93 million worth of real estate. So we're going to show you the basic mechanics of multifamily syndications and how to evaluate your next passive investment opportunity. So the best part, if you subscribe to our podcast now, leave us a review and a rating. I'm going to give you a free copy of our ebook. So please take a moment to do that now. Once you've done that, go to 5tcre.com/ebook 5tcre.com/ebook. Make sure to let us know you left a review, and we're going to send you a free copy. So thank you so much for subscribing to the 5 Talents Podcast. We really appreciate it. Let's talk about the deal, but let me know you as an individual first, right? That's a great nugget. How about the new first-time general partner, right? So I've invested a couple times, maybe passively. I'm starting education. I know, we've been doing the podcast. We, check it out. I'm listening. What would be the same kind of question applied to the new general partner? Tactical next steps, nuggets that they need to know to kind of break into the world initially as a general partner, as a principal.
Yeah, there's so many trains of thought there, and I would say one is figure out what you're good at. Is that investor relations and raising capital and networking and being the face of the business? Are you really good at that? Or are you that numbers guy? Are you that guy that is really good at structuring the deal, or broker relations? And not that those can't be interchanged differently there than what I just said, but most likely you're not going to be good at all those things. And even if you are, you're going to be holding yourself back if you try to do them all. And so, some people really shy away from partnerships, and I've seen that happen many times. I've had partnerships that haven't always gone just amazing like we had hoped, but taking the time it takes to vet, that potential partner is crucial, right? And almost just like that passive investor that's trying to invest, you got to know who they are. You want to know, this person, you want to know they have the unique skill sets that complement yours. But again, you want to know that there's somebody that's going to have your back. They're going to do what's right when time gets tough, right? And we can go into some of that, how my partner and I vetted each other, because we did not take it lightly by any means. But find that person, find a mentor for one. And you're going to hear this on so many podcasts, but why not, and don't be afraid to spend a little money on somebody, but do your due diligence, so, and a couple of quick things, I went to Bigger Pockets, and I had a few mentors in mind that I was thinking about signing up with, but man, that was a big expense. That was like the biggest check my wife and I had ever thought about writing outside of our home. So if you think about, that's a big deal, right? That is a big deal. You've never really had much money, and all of a sudden you're going to have to write how many thousands of dollars to this individual who you're hoping is going to help you. So do your due diligence. I narrowed it down. I wanted somebody that I could speak to personally, not talking to like a team of coaches under that person, and wanted somebody that was still in the business. Somebody that didn't just make it big in syndication or commercial real estate 20 years ago and they're still coaching, when somebody that's active right now. And that's a few ways that I narrowed it down. But ultimately I wanted that direct line, with that individual. And then I went on Bigger Pockets, and I found people that were in these mentor programs, and I reached out and said, hey, would you mind to have a call? And so that kept me from joining 2 different coaching programs by talking to individuals that were in those programs, and then just asking for referrals. When you do talk to that coach, like I talk to some people, it's a lot of money, just like making that investment, as a passive investor. But I would say even just as important is that investment in yourself, right? And in this sense, you need a mentor. You need somebody that's been there, done. It's going to give you a ton more confidence, no doubt about it. And you're not going to get held up as much, or when you do have a question, you're going to be able to have somebody that you can ask and move on. You're not held up right here on this one thing. And so have a mentor, and don't be afraid of partnering, but there are some key things that you need to make sure that individual has, or just qualities that are so important.
Yeah, I love it. All of those mindsets and steps, tactics, action plans, all the way through. Vet your partner, have a mentor, don't get stuck, ask those questions, those hard ones, do your due diligence on your mentor and your coach. And for those that have heard my story a few times, I've joined like 3 programs, a couple of masterminds. I dropped way too much coin as well. And, did I do diligence on the first one? No. The second one I did because of my choice on the first and second. I'm like, oh, okay, great. But every time you did it, I got more education. I had more insight. I was more confident, and I was able to charge, forward. and there was a lot less obstacles in my path that couldn't be answered from the help of my mentors, coaches, and people that were helping me along the way. So it's been very valuable. I agree. Okay, so you have a tremendous schedule today. Maybe if I can understand a little bit more, because I have a couple more questions. But what's your
Please.
schedule look like now? Like Monday through Saturday, it kind of sounds like. And how do you? Well, do you do Reg D 506B and C investments, or just C advertise only, or work with people?
Just bees.
Okay, so every single person that invests with Whitney, if you're listening, don't really understand the question. It's just SEC rules. They say you have to have a pre-existing relationship with each one of the investors before they come on. So don't think that Whitney's just sending an advertisement out to his podcast and it's going out. He's got to have a conversation, write down some goals, understand where they're going out
document
before,
all that.
yeah, and document before they invest any money. So how does that happen tactically with your schedule and everything else that you're doing? Like what is there, walk us through your schedule a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's I get that question often when people say, well, wait a minute, how did you manage to do all those things? And especially when I was talking about like when I was, because I'm not working full time anymore. I mean, I'm working in the real estate full time now,
Sure.
but when I had the day job, I was off work every other Monday. And that's why on those Mondays, I knew that like I would have 15 spots open on those days, and our team would try to fill that. And we would typically have anywhere from 10 to 14 shows, 10 to 13, something like that, booked on those days. Right.
I guess I missed in your timeline the fact that you had a Monday through Friday full-time day job until what year, Whitney?
Until just July of this year.
Holy moly, dude. You were okay. Sorry. Let me get back to your question.
But that's why I say like how difficult that time was. And why I say too, like I was talking about the hidden team members, and that's my wife and my kids.
Yes.
I could not have done this if it wasn't for the support of my wife. I mean, it's just, she's amazing in how she supported me over 2 years of just an insane schedule. And so I try to tell people though, it's like she's not into real estate. However, she is into our why and our mission, behind Life Bridge Capital. She's very passionate about that. And she's just passionate about obviously our success and me doing well in this business, but she sees us, being able to help lots of families through the adoption process. But we had to remember that during those times, right? Or when the kids don't get to see you, often it is difficult, right? And painting that picture for them where you're going. So those Mondays were my big recording days, right? I mean, I would schedule as many shows as possible. I was still working like 7 to 4:30, but I would still have openings from 5 to 7 in the morning to take phone calls, or respond to emails, things like that. I would get home at 4:30. I mean, and it was like Superman, spin around, put my dress shirt on, and do interviews, and I would schedule 3 to 5 interviews, a couple afternoons a week. And then I would have phone calls, the other afternoons, or emails, or, whatever else I needed to be working on. And so in Saturday mornings as well, I would also schedule, usually not interviews if I didn't have to, unless I got too far behind. But it would be a time of just phone calls, just investor calls, some from like 8 to noon, and then longer if I had to. And then Sundays I would try to not do anything real estate related, or just be at home with the family. But now, obviously I've changed that schedule a lot. Mondays are more like an admin day now. I do get interviewed a few times, on Mondays, or a few more times through the week, but on other shows, I have meetings with my team members now, or employees. I meet usually one-on-one with each of them through almost every week. And so we'll do those meetings sometimes on Mondays, a couple of those. And then catching up on things over the weekend, or where we're at, what are we looking at the rest of this week. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, I have recording days. I'll do 6 shows, like from 8 to noon on both of those days. And then calls or emails, the rest of the day. And then Thursday and Friday are investor calls, usually, if I didn't get them earlier in the week. And there's lots of other things scheduled in there, random meetings, or depending on what's going on. 3 of the last 4 weeks, I've traveled from Wednesday. Like I would do 6 shows in the morning, and then I would do a few investor calls, whatnot. And then I flew to Colorado to do due diligence,
Wow.
on Thursday, Friday, then fly back late Friday night. And so that, there's a lot of that happening in there too, that obviously changes all that up, but I'm still getting the interviews in, obviously still going and doing due diligence. But obviously I have more flexibility now, right? I can control that, but the schedule's still very full.
Yeah.
And so, but we've gotten caught back up now. I think I did 78 shows. I recorded 78 shows in September. And so that helped me to get caught up. So now I can pull
Yeah.
that back a little bit. I told the
Wow.
team, like, let's just go knock it out. Like, just fill it up. Like, let's get ahead, where I got behind a little bit through the adoption stuff, having to travel and stuff. And then, so there, I just have to be flexible, but that's a little peek into, and I have to be very connected to the calendar. I have to have stuff on the calendar. Our team has grown.
Yeah.
My assistant, and I have I just hired a just top notch assistant, and she's just really helping with all that stuff now too. Because if you get hundreds of emails a day and you're doing that many interviews and phone calls, it's nearly impossible to keep up and have any life outside of work. And that's not why I'm doing this, right? We're doing this so we can have more of a life with our family.
Yeah.
And so hiring this individual has been key, amongst other team members that we have that are really good at what they do.
I know I've dealt with her over emails like, hey, Whitney, I have this question, and your assistant responds back, oh, this is Whitney's assistant. I go, perfect. I got an answer immediately, and Whitney had one less question via
That's right.
email he had
That's
to do.
right.
So that's great, man. Well, those are all of this, just hearing, I know I spoke with you before, and I knew the sheer volume of effort and work that you were doing, but I had no idea that you had the full-time up until July of this year, which is insane. But at the same time, very rewarding. And I know the time, effort, and energy that you put in or have put in over the years of this journey, of this timeline that I'm looking at paper, is only going to get better for you in terms of wealth, time with your family, freedom that you're creating, and you've invested so much already. And now you're going to have to be able to, be able to reap the reward of all of that hard work, man. And you've got an amazing mission or why. The children adoption process, on the last kind of notes, right, is how did you come to that, conclusion that that's what you're going to do? And how does that actually happen in terms of like your deals? Do you, is it invested after the deal return, in the deal, just any of that insight for those that are listening, like.
Yeah, no, and I'll back up a little bit, just our story about adoption a little bit. My wife and I had never considered adopting. We grew up in a one stoplight town. We didn't know anybody that was adopted, or had adopted. But we heard a pastor talking one night about how they had adopted and how there's like 160 million orphans in the world, and how it can cost $40,000 to $60,000 to bring one home. And it's just a
Wow.
shame. It is such a shame. These kids are dying from things we can cure with $1. And you're going to tell me it's that difficult or takes that many years to bring one home. It's insane. However, we can't, unfortunately, I can't change that process, but I can help families commit to starting the process, because many of them, when they know it's going to cost 40 to 60,000, often I hear, well, Whitney, that's more than I'm making a year. Where are we going to come up with that kind of money, right? While they would be a great family or great parents, to these children. And so that's where Life Bridge Capital wants to be able to come along beside those families, to help them and say, hey, if you will commit, we're going to help you financially. We're going to help you, thinking through fundraising. We're going to help you just commit to bringing your child home and not let the financial burden, hold you back. And so we've started the Life Bridge Foundation, which was just recently finalized, actually. But the Life Bridge Foundation, where my personal profits, my wife and I are donating 50%, to that foundation. And then, but the cool part though, is that so many people in this industry have already like shown interest, and hey, they want to partner in that as well, or they have a connection to adoption, or even if they don't, they just love that mission. And I love that, that that's something other people can now get involved in. And help these families as well financially to bring their children home. And so that's, name obviously Life Bridge Capital, but there'll be the Life Bridge Foundation as well that will directly help families. And so families will apply, and we're trying to work through those kinks, legally too. Just how do you help, which families do you help, how much? There's a lot of things there that you have to work through. But we are just excited to be at this point now where we can start accepting funds, donations, and ultimately we can start helping families.
Well, great. That's amazing. Let's say that now before we wrap up. If whether they're investors that are trying to get into your world, or people that want to donate maybe directly to the nonprofit, whether investing or not, where do we reach out? What's the best place to get into your world, Whitney?
You can email me, Whitney@lifebridgecapital.com. You can call or text me, 540-585-4338.
Very good, man.
Obviously, you can go to the website and sign up on the contact us page, but that's my direct email.
This has been an amazing show, man. Amazing show, Whitney. It's great to hear your story. It's so motivational, inspirational, and there's a lot of tactical things that you gave some good advice to. Is there anything else we did not cover today? Anything that you wanted me to ask? I didn't. Just anything I left off? Anything you want to bring to light, or last minute words, whatever?
No, I mean, we covered a lot. I know I've talked probably too much, but I hope that just people are encouraged, whether you're a passive investor or whether you are trying to be a general partner. Either way, reach out if I can help in any way. I'm happy to do so.
All right. God bless you. God bless your mission. It's encouraging hearing your faith come through the entire show, and just wish you a ton of success, brother. Just keep it up, man. Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Abel.
Well, good deal. My name's Abel Pacheco. I'm your host for the 5 Talents podcast. Please, I would say if you enjoyed the show, reach out to Whitney. If you enjoyed our show as well, we would love you to subscribe, rate, and review, and continue the support here so we can get more amazing guests just like Whitney. And I don't know if just like Whitney, but other good guests. Thank you very much for everything, and we appreciate your time. Thanks, Whitney. Thank you for listening to this episode of the 5 Talents podcast with your host, myself, Abel Pacheco. Each week, we're going to bring you interviews from industry experts and commercial real estate investors who followed their dreams and achieved massive success. Before you leave, let me ask you a few questions. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you learn something valuable? Was your mind stretched to what's possible and what you can achieve? Do you want other experts just like the one you heard today? If you answered yes to any or all of those questions, then please take a moment to subscribe to the 5 Talents podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and most importantly, leave us a written review. Tell us what you liked, tell us your favorite guest, give us any feedback. I'm excited to learn and improve so you can get a more valuable show. So thank you again for subscribing to the 5 Talents podcast.